Now, I want to preface that what I'm about to say and share, the point of it is not to scare you away from the Philippines. There are harsh realities of life that occur everywhere you can think of, even in safe places like Japan, Singapore, just throughout the world. Anywhere you have people, you're going to have some bad people. And anywhere you live, there will be accidents and bad things that happen. There will be natural catastrophes like the recent floods, typhoons, earthquakes, and even one volcano, but mostly up in northern Philippines. One sort of data point, I'm not going to put these out necessarily in order of importance, but one data point that came up recently is here at Bohol on nearby Panglao, just a few days ago, there was an expat, and from what I can gather, again, details are a little sketchy, but from what I gather, this expat barely moved to the Philippines about 4 to 5 months ago. Life was groovy until one night at 2 a.m. Now, I'll stop for a second and just tell you, my own personal thought is at 2 a.m., there's nothing to do on the island after 9:30 p.m. All the stores are closed, all the malls are closed, all the restaurants are closed. The only thing open at 10, 11, midnight, 1, 2 in the morning are the bars. So I don't know that he was at a bar. I'm just saying that there's not a whole lot to do that you would be driving around at 2 o'clock in the morning on Panglao Island. Well, this expat who's only been here about 4 to 5 months had bought himself a truck and was returning home, presumably, driving a bit fast, and plowed into a motorcycle, which had a Filipino and a Filipina woman on the motorcycle. Now, I saw a video of the crash site that was shot the next morning when the sun came up, and it's probably the worst traffic accident between truck and motorcycle I've ever seen. That motorcycle was destroyed. I mean, literally, like, there wasn't a piece more than 2 feet long. I mean, any piece of that motorcycle, you could pick it up with one hand. It literally looked like there was a bomb detonated in the middle. It wasn't, but it looked that way because it just got shredded. Wheels ripped off, the frame torn apart, handlebars taken off the frame. I mean, it was obliterated in the truest sense. And unfortunately, the man and woman, the Filipinos that were on the motorbike, hit by the expat who was in the truck, did not make it. And I don't want to get into all the details, but man, it was pretty horrible. So there was that. Accidents happen in every country. But again, I'm just sort of taking it in because it really just hit me. And as I was talking to my wife V about it, she was like, well, how could this happen? And I said, well, driving at 2 o'clock in the morning, there's a very good chance he was drunk driving because there's no need to go that fast on the roads here. Like on Panglao, there's only 3 main roads that go, north and south. And being, again, out at 2 o'clock in the morning, very high chance he'd been drinking. So the man and the woman were not husband and wife. He was a hubble driver, and she had hired him to get a ride home. Maybe she had gotten off work. I don't know. Again, at maybe one of the bars. But so there was that. So the expat survived, and he's in the hospital. I keep getting conflicting reports whether he survived or not. But at this point, as far as I know, he is in the hospital, and he's going to be facing everything from criminal to civil liability charges, plus all the damage that, he incurred himself from the accident. So there was that, just over the last 2 days. Then there was another incident about, I guess it was within the last 3 days. My wife sent me the video, and I don't know what the circumstances are, but there's a Filipino guy with a CCTV camera looking down at him, which looks like his house, a modest home, but a CCTV camera looking down at him. He's at his desk, and very matter-of-factly, 2 guys just walked past the kids in the living room, and without hesitation or pretense, both guys shot shot him in the head. And it was very graphic, and they just walked right out. So this was a hit of some kind. I don't know what the motive was or nothing. All I saw was the video. So that kind of stuck out to me because I saw both these videos here just in the last week. So then last night, again, my wife is, she because she cruises through Facebook more than I do. I really don't use Facebook that much anymore. But then she was telling me about a Filipino and Filipina married. I don't think she said there was any expat involved, but Filipino and Filipina married in their bed already, like 9-10 p.m., something like that. And they hear a knock at the door. Now me, especially living in the province, nobody knocks on my door. In 2 years, only 2 people have ever knocked at my door, the landlord and the maintenance guy. And that's usually because I called the maintenance guy because we needed fresh water bottles or propane, something like that. So to me, I guess if you want to call it a mistake, this guy gets out of bed, the husband, and goes to the door, and there's a knock, and he opens the door. Not me. I'm going to look through the window. I want to know, why is somebody knocking on my door? Well, he opens the door, and right away, this drunk guy who I guess lived nearby and had seen, his wife, that she was attractive, whatever. This drunk guy, as soon as the door is open, swings at the husband with a machete. Here they call it a bolo, and they have another name for it, sundang, I think, and disabled the husband right then and there, gave him a lethal blow, and then went in and raped, then killed the wife. And they caught the guy, and his response was, well, I was drunk. So these 3 things happened, and it was only about 2 months ago. I know this is really gory. I know this is bad, but I'm getting to a point here. There was a bamboo hut, and I'll just glaze over the details really quick because this was really horrible. There were 2 kids, each one younger than maybe 4 years old, and the mother left them alone and even locked the house because she had to go do something, so she's gone. So she leaves like a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old there in the house alone. And sadly, the bamboo hut caught fire, completely burned to the ground. And the video was just so sad, because here they show everything, and they showed what was left of these 2 little kids, being picked up and put into a body bag. My point is not to say, oh, the Philippines is dangerous, don't come here, because you could dig through the news in the last week, and it doesn't matter if it's United States, Mexico, Canada, Australia, whatever, there are horrible things, equally horrible and maybe even worse, happening daily. And that's counting just the ones that get caught or are represented or presented by the news. That's not counting the ones where the criminal just gets away with it. So this week, I get bombarded with all this, really negative, depressing, bummer information. And then I'm like, at the same time, because, it's like my wife and I talked about it. It was like, okay, good night, and then we get on with our day the next day and everything. And like today is a perfect example. Today we woke up, it was sunny. I got up around 7 a.m. We fed the dogs, and, V gave them a bath, which, the bigger dog, he'll actually hide under the bed to get away from taking a bath. We washed the dogs, and then I made my, my coconut bullet latte. I'm having one right now. We had a great day. I went and did some errands, picked up some green bananas that she likes, and I got some fish from the pier. Well, not the pier, but the bridge. I picked up some more dog food, just bought, different things at like 3 different locations. But it was nice to get out of the house and just ride the motorbike, sunny day. I got home and then just kind of piddling around online and, V and I talking and, just a beautiful day. We're having a great day and planning out dinner. And, I made curry pork chops in the air fryer. It's kind of one of my favorites. And, so now here it is, 10 p.m. and V and I had an awesome day, just a great day. And so did most other people. I keep in contact with all my buddies. I try to touch bases with them. And they all had, a really good day. They're, meeting girls and checking out new places, moving to new locations. In general, life is good for most people. And I guess there's no reason or rationale I can make of these contrasting realities. On the one hand, every day, life is a horrific nightmare for some people. And as I've told V, when somebody encounters trouble, tragedy, whatever, sometimes it happens to that person through no fault of their own. A person gets cancer. Unless it's lung cancer because they were smoking since they were 13. If it's just out of the blue, they get bone cancer or something, that's not their fault. Or they get whatever, they get Alzheimer's, they get whatever, Sometimes things happen to people, like a typhoon or an earthquake, and your house gets leveled or it crushes you and they have to amputate your leg or, things happen to you. Okay, that's one type of tragedy. The other type of tragedy, which again, I haven't gotten into yet, but the other type of tragedy is the kind that happens to people because it's self-inflicted. And I was following up on the progression of this, I won't name him, but he was a presence out here in Southeast Asia. And just the most reckless, arrogant, shameless, prideful, dim-witted person you could think of. He's literally a danger to himself. He just hasn't got a clue. And it just happened that as he came up on my radar, because I normally don't follow the guy, he came up on my radar, and within a week, it was the final culmination of years of stupidity, just a complete moron. And so he came up on my radar this week, and as I'm following him every day, next thing you know, it's like he's got to get out of Southeast Asia, and basically head back home. Never finished high school, no job skills, no work history, no willingness to work, self-entitled to the hilt, wants everybody else to pay his bills. Why? Nobody knows. And now he's experiencing sticker shock and everything else, returning to the USA. Now that kind of tragedy is self-inflicted. So after getting all these data points this week, I'm trying to make sense of it. And all I can come to is that's life. That's it. That's life. We do the best we can to cultivate the kind of life we want to have if we're normal, sane thinking people. And we do a lot of what I talk about on the channel. If you're going to move to the Philippines, make a budget and figure out what is your income source so that you're not stranded and homeless in the Philippines or anywhere else. If you're going to move to the Philippines and get along with other people, well, then be a decent human being. Even if you don't like what the culture is presenting, be gracious as a guest in their country and just go, it's their country. Just let them do it the way they want, and just live your life. Live your life peacefully with other people. These are all basic principles that fall under the heading of common sense. And most of us know better. Most of us know, okay, if I want to move to the Philippines, if I even want to visit and vacation for 3 weeks or a month, I got to know I got enough money. I got to be aware of the visa requirements. I need to look at Google Maps, figure out strategically where's a good place to stay. Is there a nearby mall where I can get a lot of services done that I need? You have to be an adult. And I think the thing that amazes me year after year is how many guys are 50 years and older and they lack this common sense we're talking about. They are complete train wrecks when they get here. Another area is romance. You would think that by the time a guy was, say, 50 years old, he would have dated quite a bit. He would have learned a thing or two, watched some videos on YouTube about women and how to interact with them, how to set boundaries. And no, guys come here and they're like, oh, pretty girl. And they open their wallet and they're like, you'll spend time with me, right? Here's some money. idiot moves. And I've done my best over the years to, point guys in the right direction. And many have commented and said, yeah, I'm glad I saw the videos and having a great time, found a great wife or having a great retirement, whatever. And that's awesome. But man, it's hard. I guess it's hard for me to accept that nothing can be done about people who are their own worst enemy. People who will unravel their own personal life and cause havoc and destruction for everybody near them, for their wife, their girlfriend, their parents, their kids if they have any, their landlords. Everybody involved suffers because of the dim-witted insanity these people insist on living upon. Thinking the world owes them. They don't need to work. People should support them. People, viewers should send money to pay for their bills. And it's a hard thing to accept that there's nothing that can be done about these people except for one thing. It's simply having the patience to wait and let consequences be their teacher. And it doesn't even guarantee they're going to learn. They may end up in prison. They may end up homeless and going from one homeless shelter to another. They may be ostracized from their family who is just sick and tired of their crap. They may end up divorced. They may go through a lot of consequences and still not learn a damn thing. They just double down on their previous behavior. So I don't know. Like I said, it's been a weird week, but the silver lining to it all is that if you do put the time into planning, behaving responsibly, using common sense, you can have a great life.